Well, the sermon title this morning is Teach Your Children Well. Anyone else have a song from Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young in their head yet? Yeah. All right. Being a parent, friends, is tough. There are so many magazines, books, articles, and blogs, unsolicited advice from random strangers in the grocery store. It's all out there. But despite the countless suggestions and tips, life hacks, and warnings, the basic premise of parenting, from the beginning of humanity itself, is still the same, and still just as daunting. Raise your child well. Perhaps the 21st century addition to this goal would be something along the lines of, so he or she doesn't spend all of the adult years in prison, or in counseling, or in both. This being the beginning of the school year, I wanted to spend a little time talking about a very important topic of raising our young people within the church. Now, I am not a parent, although we are recent fur baby parents, and that's perhaps a challenge in its own right. I also have been working in children and youth ministry for the past 18 years now, so I know enough, in fact, to quickly admit that I know nothing about parenting in comparison to the brave women and men who have either gone through this experience or who are currently raising children. Bless you. So instead of spouting off with my hot takes on raising good Christian kids, I decided to actually reach out in the world of Facebook. And I asked a few people one or two questions. The first one was to parents, what is one thing that you would like for your church to know about raising kids today? And the second was, how can the church better support your family? And so these are some of the responses I would like to share with you all this morning. The first, just form relationships with my children. When they know that there are adults out there that take the time to talk and listen to them, it makes them even more excited to go to church. The second, ask about how schoolwork or tutoring help or how that art or music class is going. Offer intergenerational activities and programs where children, parents, and grandparents can share in activities together. Offer childcare for any event you would like a parent to attend. Act like your faith is important. Kids need to see it from others as well. Ask about the faith of the kids. Know the child by name. And along with that, know the parents by name as well. Don't assume that all children are, quote unquote, normal. Make an effort to be hospitable to children and families, especially with special needs. Don't assume that everyone has family nearby that can help or even be there for parents when they need something. That is perfectly acceptable if a child makes noise during a church service. One person suggested, just keep offering things. We can't make it every single event, but it's not that we don't want to be there. We just are super busy. So keep inviting us. This one I like personally. They said, we don't need to be told how tired we look. We know this already. And finally, tell the parents every week how good of a job we are doing. See, there is some wisdom in Facebook after all. Raising a child in this world today is not easy. Raising a Christian child is no easier. In a world where there are so many other options for children and families to participate in, what is our message as the church? With news headlines where the church has disappointed families and individuals who church leaders have even preyed upon children in the church. What is our message today? These comments from those parents got me thinking, what does the Bible have to say about this topic? And something for us to think about down the road, how can we better support our parents and children each and every day here at Valley Community? So we continue in the book of Proverbs again. As I read previously, there are quite a few verses within this book that discuss raising faithful children, and there are certainly more in the rest of the Bible. That being said, it must have been an important topic for people even some 3,000 years back, and still is for us today. There are a variety of themes within the Proverbs of King Solomon. Chapters 10 through 30 often spoke about justice, righteousness, marriage, language, hard work, and of course wisdom, like we discussed last Sunday. And right within all of these really important themes was the topic of raising children. So let me read a few of these verses once again. Chapter 23 of Proverbs, verses 15 through 26 reads, "My child, if your heart is wise, my heart too will be glad. My soul will rejoice when your lips speak what is right. Do not let your heart envy sinners, but always continue in the fear of the Lord." In chapter 22, verse 6 reads, "Train your child in the right way, and when old, they will not stray." And there do seem to have a few themes within Proverbs that come from these passages regarding raising children. The first is that good children equals happy parents. It makes sense, right? Remember that first reading, a wise child makes a glad father, but a foolish child is a mother's grief. Second, children are also held accountable to their actions. Chapter 20 of Proverbs reads, "Even children make themselves known by their acts, by whether what they do is pure and right." And finally, the theme which I like to think about, discipline is a good thing, not only for our children, but for all of us who seek God. Chapter 14 reads, "In the fear of the Lord, one has strong confidence, and one's children will have a refuge." So what can we glean from these teachings in Proverbs about parenting today? Well, if you were looking for practical advice, teachings, lessons like one finds on today's mommy blogs, I'm not sure you will be content to what you find here. Don't hang out with drunkards and gluttons. I guess that's a good lesson for us to learn this morning. Proverbs may not be the best place to glean the latest information and fads on parenting, but I believe that there are some wonderful messages that we can take away with us today. Whether we are parents ourselves, or we simply want to support the parents in our lives. The good news this morning, friends, is that God's plan includes the entire Christian church, our family of faith, to raise wise, loving, faithful children together. Parents, you are not alone. Children, you are not alone. We together as the church are called to raise these children of God to know the love of God in the same way we have come to know and love our Creator. And what does this say about our Creator itself? Through the words of Proverbs, we also begin to understand the nature of God as a loving parent as well. God not only calls us as humans to love and raise our children, but God's very self loves us with the same love of a parent for a child. God takes all that we are, our beauty, our talents, our quirks and failures, and loves us still. God has the same hopes and dreams for us as a parent does for a child. God desires not that we become successful as the world may define it, but that we live into our true nature and being as children of God. This is what pleases God, who loves us unconditionally. So a bit of a challenge for us this morning. How can we better support our families this school year? What can we do individually and as a church to not only share God's love with those families who are church members, but also the families of the community who don't worship with us on Sundays, but who we see most other days on our streets, in our neighborhoods, and at our schools? I wonder what God may be calling us to do and be as Valley Community in the days to come. And what a wonderful example of God's beloved community when parents and children of all backgrounds can not only come into church and be safely loved and supported, but think about this, but also when parents and children of all backgrounds can be loved and supported in their daily lives, wherever they may be. The church is called to embrace families of all different ages and makeups and colors and structures and types and care for them as if they are part of our own family, because as Christians we understand that we are in fact all part of God's family. Jesus is recorded as saying in the Gospel of Matthew, "Let the children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Today, as we celebrate and perhaps lament a little bit the beginning of the school year, we also celebrate a God who celebrates the child, who celebrates the parent, and who calls all to raise our children to know and experience the love of God in their lives. May we as a church live into this calling of Jesus to embrace the children of this community. To remember our pledge with each and every baptism that we raise these children with the same hopes and dreams and love as we would our own children. And to reflect the very love and grace of God that we have been so fortunate to experience ourselves. May we personally come to know the unconditional love and support of God in our lives as a loving parent. May we feel God's presence in our lives as we continue on our own walks of faith. And may we come to know God, who continues to call us to embrace our loving, beautiful identities as children of our loving parents. And all of God's children said,